Good morning and welcome to our final ISM Lunch and Learn session for September. Wow, the month just flew, didn't it? Today we're going to be speaking with Ms. Perry Lynn Silkwood regarding Altec document management. A great way to expand upon the inherent paperless office function within your Sage 100 software. Perry Lynn, welcome. Thank you. I'm going to turn everything over to you. One bit of housekeeping. You will be muted throughout the presentation. However, we will have questions and answers at the end. If something comes up in the middle, please feel free to raise your hand or use the chat feature. We'll address all of that at once. Thank you, and again, welcome, Perry Lynn.
Thanks, Sherry. I really appreciate that, and welcome, everyone. I am especially excited today to give you an opportunity to start exploring why you should be considering document management as a part of your organization. So let's take a look, right? We live today in a world of what we call instant access. So it's all about looking at your phone, trying to find a restaurant. So here I'm in San Francisco today. Maybe I want to look up a Thai restaurant, and then I want to view the menu, and I want to look at the reviews, and then I want to map directions, right? So this is something that we expect today just naturally, and we expect it to be instant. But let's compare and contrast that to what we're experiencing in our businesses today. Is it as easy to find those kinds of documents in your organization? So I have some questions for you over the next couple slides, and I'd like for you to give it some thought. And then at the end, we can circle back and maybe do some little on-the-fly trends analysis in terms of what you all are experiencing on the phone with us today. Are you ready? Okay, so first question I would love for you to contemplate, and that is, how are you storing documents today? Right? Most of you will probably tell me that you're storing documents in filing cabinets. Right? That is most traditional for most business documents and transactional oriented documentation as well. However, some of you may have already made the leap, the first step towards going paperless, and have maybe moved to a network file share. But there are some still inherent problems in a network file share because it doesn't give you the agility and the power and the speed of being able to get documents. And then, of course, what we're talking about today is an alternative, using software and technology to solve the business issues and paper-based bottlenecks that we're experiencing in organizations. All right, so don't forget this first question. How are you storing documents today? All right, let's now transition and talk a little bit about the traditional business issues that are happening in our organizations. And this is another area that I want you to give some serious thought to, because each one of these issues has a financial calculation attached to it, so we can get a good feel for what is the cost of doing business manually today. And if you're clear on what it costs to do business manually today, then it's really clear on what dollar amount you should likely set aside in order to invest in technology. So let's explore these together. Right? First one is storage, right? So we know that there are storage implications. People may be storing documents in filing cabinets, right? And there's a time calculation in order to be able to go and search for documents, even more time if that document is not where you're expecting it to be, right? And if you're using off-site storage, there's also some cost implications there as well. So the first thing is, are you experiencing storage issues? Next one, business processes. Let's talk about AP invoicing for a moment, right? If you are today routing documents manually through your organization, there are also cost implications there. And it's really about time, right? And time equals money. So it is a time-consuming task to route documents manually through an organization, whether it's for the purposes of approval. It could be about maybe coding that particular invoice through AP, through the approving manager, or it may be a simple communication about a document that you want to share. And if something is traveling in the organization in a manual way, then the probability of that document being lost, right, is high. So there's a cost calculation there as well. Let's talk about visibility, right? So if you have an electronic workflow then you have the ability to raise visibility and control not only of the document, but also the transaction. So that's really critical. As well, you have the capability of leveraging security about the documents. So you have distinct capabilities about restricting what documents each user has access to. And this has further implications because when we start talking about operational documents or legal documents or contracts or HR documents, then we really want to be able to lock down what different people see. Let's move on to strategic goals, because that's really important as well. And I want you to think about what are the strategic initiatives of your company, and we'll go into these in greater detail as well, right? And how would document management, driving productivity, eliminating paper-based bottlenecks, help you meet those strategic goals? And then at the end of our presentation, we're going to talk about ROI, because I think ROI is pretty important. It stands for return on investment, and I think it's really important to have clarity on the business issues that you're experiencing today, right? What those financial calculations are or implications, and why it may be important for you to invest in technology. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I have 3 questions for you. Are you ready? And this is, if we were in a room of people, right, typically what happens is I am seeing a lot of head nodding going on, a head nodding and smiles. So does your current system require a lot of touching, moving, and filing of documents? I'm envisioning you all nodding your heads right now. How about your approval processes? Are they manual and inefficient? And here's a big one. How much time do you spend doing data entry? So there's a process here about an invoice coming in, someone writing on the face of the document, right? Maybe it's an approval note. Maybe it is a GL account code. It'll travel to the next approving manager for their participation. They too may write on the face of the document, and then that invoice comes back to AP, and AP is having to do voucher entry. So in that case, we're really talking about 3 rounds of data entry. What would it mean to you if you were able to streamline that particular process? Right? Pretty powerful. What I'd like to do next is give you just a little introduction into DocLink and what it comprises of. Because my hope today in today's webinar is to really not only help you understand the natural business issues that companies are experiencing, but also help you think very broadly, because DocLink is an enterprise-wide solution. So while we may introduce it through the lens of accounts payable, it really can be applied anywhere in the organization in order to streamline processes and give you easier access to documents. So let's look at these 4 functional pillars. Right? The first element is DocLink gives you the very powerful capability of capturing any kind of document, report, or form. And the whole purpose of being able to capture that is the second pillar, being able to really easily search and retrieve that document. Right? Search and retrieve it right within your Sage application or right from within DocLink, and we can extend that even further with both web and mobile access. So that gives some nice usability factor to all of your remote employees. Let's take a look at number 3, workflow. Workflow is a powerful and configurable workflow engine, and it's all about routing documents from one employee to another. And you can do all sorts of creative things. What we want to do generally is understand how you're doing business today and what kind of paper-based bottlenecks you're experiencing, and then it makes it really simple to lay that technology over and really drive efficiency for you. Number 4, right? Automated output. If you are struggling today in terms of printing a document and or manually creating a PDF and putting it in email, right? And or printing the document and mailing it out, there is a portion of our software that is designated to automatically capturing a document and automatically routing it outside of the organization. So things to think about. AR invoices, where we're invoicing a customer. Maybe we're sending an order acknowledgement out. Right? So all of those things can be automated, again, driving time savings, and eliminating the need to be using paper in the organization. Now, the last element here is something that we called DocLink Smart Forms. And it is all about giving you a tool that enables you to do forms in your organization. So think about this. What are you doing for expense reports today? Most people are still using Excel, right? So we have a tool that enables employees to not only capture receipt photos with their cell phone, but upload those into an expense report, like form, and then we can use the power of workflow in order to route that through approval and use the power of the integration with the ERP to move that transaction into the ERP, all the while driving your corporate controls, right? Streamlining the approval process and eliminating the data entry. Okay. So I've been talking a little bit about the functionality that's available, and we've been touching on ROI components. And I wanted to give you a couple little stories about the amount of savings that your companies can possibly take advantage of. Now, I'm going to give you some small examples and some large examples, but it's really about looking inward and asking yourselves the questions about how much are you spending in these particular areas. So this particular Midwest manufacturing company, they were spending $85,000 on an annual basis for their offsite storage, right? This includes the packaging up of documents and sending them, right? The retrieval of documents, right? So there's a lot of expense in going into managing paper-based documents. So what would it mean to you if you were able to eliminate that offsite storage, right? Are there other areas where you're actually storing documents today? I've heard all sorts of stories. I had a company in City of Industry. They're an airline manufacturer, or parts for airlines. And they actually have, or did have, a cage on the warehouse floor filled with documents. Wouldn't it be more powerful to be able to use that for sellable inventory? I had a real estate company that had an entire floor based on filing cabinets, and now they've been able to repurpose that space with actual employees. So there they were able to grow their organization, right, and eliminate the need to expand the footprint of their organization. So there we're talking about rent and or lease savings. All right. Now we talked about the automated delivery, right, so sending documents outside the organization. And there are powerful calculations that are attached to that particular business issue, right? There is postage. So in this particular case, the company was spending just on postage alone $11,000 on an annual basis, right? What would it mean to you if you could save on postage? And don't forget, this is only one little kind of column of savings, you know, not to mention the paper, right? So what are you spending on paper? What are you spending on envelopes? What is the soft dollar calculation on what it's taking for someone to physically spend the time to do that when automation is very possible, right? What else? Oh, this is one of my favorite ones, because I always think about the strategic initiatives of a company and really enabling them to grow without adding headcount. And it may be that the reverse is true as well, whereby your company may be contracting, so you're actually in a position of having to do more with less. So by applying technology and driving productivity, you really, really have an opportunity to do more with less or grow without adding headcount. And that also has a very meaningful calculation attached to it. The calculation there is simply, what would it be the cost of adding an employee to take, you know, or to keep up with transactional volume? So let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into these kind of business issues that we've been talking about. And what I would love to offer to all of you is that if any of these issues resonate with you, definitely reach out to Sherry and we can absolutely put together a demo for you so we can show you the functionality and talk with you about maybe what you're experiencing, and that way we can make the demonstration very, very compelling for you. But let's talk a little bit about that storage, right? And I think the most important thing is that because we are so deeply integrated with the Sage family of products, you have easy access to documents right from within the Sage windows, right? and also within DocLink as well. And we talked a little bit at the top of the hour with you have many ways to access these documents via the web, on an iPhone, right, on an iPad. Now, what's going to be most meaningful to your organization in allowing employees to have easy access to documents? Let's talk about business processes, right? And this is all about how are you routing documents today in your organization? Are you using email, right? Are you using a red hot folder? Do you have multiple locations and therefore you are routing documents throughout the organization and incurring courier costs or FedEx Express costs? So when we talk about workflow, it's really about thinking, how are you transferring those documents internally today? One of the biggest benefits that I also see in our application is by allowing employees, generally specifically approving managers that are involved in approving documents, to be able to use what we call email approvals. And you can see right here on the screen, right close to the bottom, there are some links, approve or deny. So by really providing an easy mechanism to keep up with approvals, what that's going to mean to your organization is driving productivity of the approval cycle, and the financial implication is being able to no longer have to pay late fees on your invoices, or opening up the opportunity to negotiate early pay discounts. So we can add that to the column of our return on investment calculation. Now, let's take a look at the right-hand side of the screen, right, where you're seeing this mobile device. If your employees prefer mobile access, that's another possibility. So the beauty here is just giving people all sorts of different choices to make it easy for them to do the right thing. Another nice benefit that we love to talk about is being able to delegate your workflow. So if in your organization the approval cycle is a problem, right, we want to find all sorts of creative ways to drive the ability of people to do their job very quickly. But what happens if they go on vacation, right? So in our system, DocLink, you have the opportunity to do delegation. So if I'm on vacation and maybe I want to delegate my workflow to Sherry, right, then we have the capability of doing that. It's all about that, again, going back to drive productivity with all of our different processes. Let's spend a moment and talk about visibility, right? Visibility, security, and compliance. Because this is also one of the high-level questions that I get when I'm talking to different customers and they're investigating DocLink for the use in their organization. And on the IT side, I generally get a big question about security. How can we deploy security? So I want you to know that there are many different ways, and they're posted here on the screen, in terms of how we can restrict who has access to what documents, right? And that's critical, especially as we start moving this solution out to departments such as HR, right? Okay, let's continue on. Oh, audit, right? So another question for you. Have you experienced a painful audit, right? What would it mean if you could actually collapse the audit process? Right, so there's some more financial implications that we could, add to our growing ROI sheet here. So this is a company in Maryland. They are a global publishing company, right? And the business issue that they were trying to solve is that they had suffered a bad audit, and they got a penalty, $100,000, in terms of not being able to produce documentation. So their first goal was to actually backscan all their disbursement packets into our software so they could have easy search and retrieval by many different kind of search parameters: check number, voucher number, invoice number, vendor ID, vendor number, GL account code information, right? And then they went through, after they had stabilized that deployment, they went back and then they did a traditional, more AP invoice approval deployment, right, where they were streamlined that whole entire process. So my questions to you are, did you have a painful audit, right? Would it be easier and more compelling to be able to give your auditors easier access to documents? Don't forget, we can provide the security to restrict what they have access to. but my customers have reported back that it's been easier to prepare for the audit, support the auditors while they're on site, and then, of course, there's no more cleanup effort after the auditors. So that also drives that productivity gains and time savings. So let's transition now into talking a little bit about your strategic initiatives, right? And so this is really important to contemplate now, because if you think about the high-level, right, C-level initiatives of the company, you can think about how document management can help support those initiatives also. So I was thinking about, over my kind of 10 years here at DocLink, what are the common strategic initiatives? So if prospects are calling me, they're usually calling me to solve very specific things. And at the strategic level, there's been some kind of directive from the CEO or the CFO that they need to go paperless. Why? Because there's financial implications by doing business manually, right? And then it goes back to, what are they trying to do? Are you trying to grow without adding headcount? Are you trying to do more with less? You know, it's usually all about driving productivity and cost savings and applying technology in order to meet those goals. Let's now just kind of talk a little bit about capturing data anywhere, right? We've talked a little bit about mobile. I want to make sure that you keep that at the forefront of your mind, simply because it's important when adopting new technology that you allow the users, you know, a very easy way to get access. And the question is somewhat rhetorical, but what do your users need, right? Do they need mobile access? If the answer is yes, then there's a mobile application that can help them. So let's talk one more time about ROI. I know we've been talking about this throughout, but I wanted to kind of frame it out for you so that if you wanted to do a quick scratch pad analysis, then you have an opportunity to do that. And by the way, if you would like a ROI worksheet, just pop a note to Sherry, and then I can send Sherry the worksheet that I use, and then if it makes sense, we can even set up a call and kind of talk through it if you think that that would be powerful in terms of, all right, are we setting up a budget for 2018? You know, what kinds of questions do we need to ask ourselves to see if DocLink should be part of that strategic initiative moving forward, right? But here are the areas that we've been talking about. Cutting paper and office supply costs, right? And there are very specific questions that you can ask yourselves to reveal, you know, what is the cost of doing business manually in those areas. How about eliminating off-site storage and retrieval fees? Remember, we talked about that story of that one company. They're spending $85,000 annually. Now, that's an extreme example, but the question to ask yourself is, what are you spending, right? Or do you not use off-site storage, but you can use the calculation of square footage in your organization and then repurpose that space, right? Don't forget, what are the strategic initiatives for your organization? If you could drive productivity, you know, and reallocate that time to go after those activities, what would that mean financially to your organization? And we also, of course, talked about growing without adding headcount. But here, let me know if you would like a calculator to kind of help support exploring these initiatives more deeply, then I'm happy to send that out to you. All right, so we've talked about a lot. Right, we talked about storage, and we talked about streamlining common business processes and visibility, security, and compliance in our strategic goals, and we've also calculated kind of a pseudo ROI. So what I'd like to really offer you next is an opportunity to ask any questions. My offer to you is that if anything has resonated with you today, then let's take the next step, right? I would say reach out to Sherry, and then let's schedule a call where we can really talk about what's happening in your business today, where are you facing paper-based bottlenecks and issues, and then with that information, I can easily put together kind of a preliminary quote, and we can even move towards doing a product demonstration where I can show you with DocLink how it can help you solve those very specific business issues. So Sherry, I think now is a great time to just really open up the line for maybe questions, or if anyone wants to take the next step, then they can just simply either chat to you or reach out to you as their trusted business advisor and get something on the calendar.
Well, the phone lines have been open, so if there's any questions out there, please speak up. We are able to hear you. I have checked the chat window and I'm seeing no questions that have been asked. So any questions out there on the product for Perry Lynn? Okay, I am not hearing anything, but as Perry Lynn stated, if something comes up, if you have further questions, if you'd like a one-on-one demo or any further information, you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to me at the spalumbo@goism.com, but you can always reach us at AM for account manager, am@goism.com. Always the better way, just in case I'm out of office for some reason, one of my team will get it and we'll be able to reach out to Perry Lynn. With that, I'm going to close everything. I'm not hearing any questions, and Perry Lynn, I want to thank you very much for your time today. Please note this webinar has been recorded and will be posted up to the ISM YouTube channel if you'd like to review it with other team members or take a look at it again. Thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Bye, Sherry.